Many people look at different Vanguard ETFs to add to their portfolio. They think about VOO, VTI, or even VUG. Now, if we're looking at maybe some dividend ETFs, we're looking at VYM or VIG. So one of the most hidden gems out there is VGT. Now, you may have heard of VGT when we talk about growth ETFs or even technology kind of based ETFs. VGT is the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, and it is one ETF that could skyrocket your portfolio and make you rich. In today's video, we are going to talk about 4 reasons why I think VGT is one of the best growth ETFs to add to your portfolio today. And you may not know this, but there are some great growth ETFs on the market, and we're going to be talking about how VGT kind of beats these growth ETFs. Hey guys, my name is Steve, and I run the Frugal Expat website, where we try to help people to save more and invest better. Today we're going to work on trying to invest better for your future. Now, if you like this content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll continue to create great content to help you out. Now, if we're looking at VGT, VGT is the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, and VGT has been around since 2004, so it is a quite older ETF compared to some of the others like VTI or VOO. Now, when we're looking at some great ETFs to add to our portfolio, we first think about a foundational or base ETF. That could be VTI or VOO. We look at maybe a dividend-based ETF like DGRO, SCHD, or VYM. And we may look at some growth ETFs like SCHG, QQQ, or even VGT. Now, VGT is not like most growth ETFs. VGT is a technology ETF, so it's got technology companies. That is the only sector it does. So it's not like diverse like SCHG or QQQ. It's got all technology. It's got Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Broadcom. It's got Palantir. It's got so many great tech companies to build a great portfolio that could skyrocket and grow. Now, I know what you're thinking, that it could be just a little bit too risky, and that's why we had this part as a smaller portion of your portfolio. Now, if you're like me and you're looking to grow and you have a great long time horizon, this could be that great growth ETF. Now, what I mean by that is look at the performance over the last 5 or 10 years. Over the last 10 years, VGT has averaged 21.21%, and over the last 5 years it has averaged 20.57%. Now, if you're comparing that to some other growth ETFs like QQQ or SCHG, it is bypassing those. QQQ on average has done a little bit less than 20%. SCHD has done 16.5% over the last 10 years, while VGT is doing 21%. Now, not every year is the same. Some years, the S&P 500 may beat VGT, but if we're looking over the long term, it is beating a lot of those growth ETFs. And why? Because it has a lot of different technology companies, and as this new AI era is starting to grow and grow, you may see VGT on the rise. But maybe those aren't the reasons you're looking for. Now, today in this video, we are going to talk about 4 different reasons why I think VGT is the best growth ETF to add to your portfolio. And if you don't agree with me, that's okay. This is my opinion, and you can leave your comments in the comment section, and I'll take a look and reply. All right, let's get down to number 1. And number 1 is important. Number 1 is it has a high concentration of tech companies. Now, when we're looking at trying to pick and choose some stocks, we may look at Apple, we may grab some Microsoft, maybe some Nvidia, but we may not know what else to pick. So that's why VGT is a great position, because it's got all of them. It's got Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Broadcom, IBM, it's got Cisco, it's got Palantir. Now, all these companies are great tech companies that can grow your portfolio. Now, we look at Palantir, did 300% last year. We look at IBM. IBM is a great dividend producing tech company that's just keeps on coming and keeps on staying around. We look at Nvidia doing the AI. We look at Apple and Microsoft being great software companies. Now, we have now all of them all in one place. Now, you may think this is a little bit less diverse, but I like it because if I want to buy maybe Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, that's going to cost me a lot of money. Now, if I wanted to maybe do it all in one place, VGT makes that possible. It is a great ETF that has some of the best companies in tech concentrated, and you can just buy it today. Now, is this good? Well, some people think it may be bad because you have no diversification in other different sectors. Well, for people that are looking for technology-based companies and things to add that kind of growth into their portfolio, this could be a great place to start. And if you were looking at some other great growth ETFs like QQQ or schg, you too have those same different companies in a high percentage. But with VGT, you have slightly higher percentage. So the top 10 companies create a 60% of this portfolio. So if you don't want to go and individually buy these companies, you just buy VGT and have some of these great companies at your fingertips. All right, let's get on to number 2. Number 2 is going to be a long stability versus other tech ETFs. There are a lot of other great tech ETFs on the market. VGT has been around since 2004, so that's pretty long period. And right now, it's got some great stable companies. Apple, Microsoft, Broadcom, IBM, these companies have been around for a good period of time that they're now producing some great dividends. Microsoft just raised their dividend 11% in December, and that's just showing the stability of this company. Now, the company may not be growing as much. It's creating a great dividend, and it provides stability within this ETF. Now, as we take a look at some of these other ones, we can take a look at the Seeking Alphas like grades. Let's take a look briefly. As we take a look at some other tech ETFs, we can see that IYW and IXN are some of the 2 top tech ETFs out there compared to VGT. Now, all 3 of those have some great A+ ratings, but then when we come to expenses, VGT is an A, IYW is a B-, and IXN is a B-. Now, we look at dividends, VGT beats on dividends. If we look at risk, VGT has a better risk grade, and liquidity, VGT is on par with all of those. So as we look at this, VGT is more stable for the long term. And that's good news for you because if you are investing in VGT, you're not investing for the short term. You're going to want to invest for the long term because 20-year horizon is much better than 1 year. 1 year is going to have possibly some ups and downs, and you may not be comfortable to stomach those. That's why we usually say stick with a good broad market ETF like VOO or VTI, and then add growth with maybe 10, 15, maybe even 20%, depending on your risk tolerance. So with VGT, you are having a great stable tech ETF compared to some of the other tech ETFs. All right, let's go on to our next one. Our next one is going to be the dividend. So number 3 is the dividend. Now, you may not be thinking of a tech company having dividends, and that's okay because when we're looking at dividend ETFs, we're looking at maybe DGRO, we're looking at SEHD, we're looking at VYM or VIG, and these are some other great dividend ETFs to add to your portfolio. But we're not looking at dividend ETFs, we're looking at tech and growth ETFs. Now with VGT, you are getting a 0.60% yield, which means you're going to be earning around $3 per year on this ETF. Now, that doesn't sound like much to me or most people, but if you're looking at some stability and you're looking at some dividend income versus some other growth companies, growth ETFs, we're kind of doing pretty good. Apple and Microsoft are producing some dividends. You have Broadcom producing dividends. You have IBM producing dividends. Those are some great stable companies. Now, if we were to look at SEHG, SEHG has a yield of 0.36%. QQQ has a yield of 0.57%, which is close to that 0.6% of VGT, so they are kind of similar. Well, that's great news. So if we're looking at the dividend, we're seeing that VGT is doing a great dividend for this ETF. And that's good news for you. Stability, dividend income, and growth all in one place. I mean, what could go wrong? I mean, that sounds like a great place to park some money. All right. Number 4 is going to be the performance. Now, when we're looking at having some growth, we want to see it perform well compared to other growth ETFs. And that is where VGT comes in and kind of reigns over everything. Now, when we compare it to VOO, we see that VGT has increased their performance over 570%. Now, you compare that to VOO, which is 257%. We are seeing almost a double in performance compared to VOO. Now, if we were to put $10,000 into VGT about 10 years ago and did the same thing with VOO, we will see that VGT would increase that money up to $66,000. That is great news. Now, VOO, on the other hand, is up to $34,000. That is also great news because you are still creating some good growth with that money. But with VGT, you have created even more. Now, if we were to, increase that to $100,000 compared to $10,000, you can see that's $6,600,000 is a little bit more than $340,000. Those are some great numbers. But with every single portfolio, you also need to make sure you have a little bit more diversification because there are going to be ups and downs. In 2022, the market was down 33%, so you may see a drop. Now, with VOO having a 19% drop, it's not as hard as 33%. But with VGT, you are getting a little bit more growth and you're getting a little bit better performance. And this better performance outperforms QQQ and SCHG, and it is on track with some of the other tech companies, but it's still doing much better. That's why I like VGT. Now, those are 4 different reasons why I like VGT. Now, you may be wondering, what are the cons? Why should I not choose VGT? Well, that's a great question. I have a few cons to help you guys out. First of all, is going to be the short-term instability. Earnings are coming out. 2023 and 2024 were some great years for VGT. And that's good because as AI has skyrocketed, VGT has done the same. And those are some great things. But should we look at some instability coming forward? Yes, we should. We can already see it. China just brought out DeepSeek in one of their AIs. Albania just brought out their own AI. And you have some other companies competing for NVIDIA and some of these other AI companies. Now, that could bring in some instability with this ETF. You may see it go up and down through the next year, through maybe the next 2 years. And that could be concerning to you. You may look at an ETF like VOO that tracks the S&P 500 and say, why didn't I just put my money in this S&P 500 instead of this tech ETF? Well, that is a good question because you may see that S&P 500 is doing a little bit better than VGT at this moment. And that may be concerning for those people that are looking in the short term. Now, my time horizon is a long-term time horizon. I'm not looking at 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm looking at 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And that's what you should be focused on. If you are focused on the short term, VGT may not be the right ETF for you. And that is one of its cons. So take a look at kind of the short term or versus long term mentality. All right, our next con. Our next con is going to be a high concentration of the top 10 stocks. Now, earlier I talked about having a high concentration in some tech stocks, and that could be also a huge con. We're looking at diversification. Now, VGT has over 300 different holdings, which comprise of large cap, mid cap, and small cap. But the top 10 holdings comprise of 60% of the portfolio, and the bottom 10% consist of 0.1% of the portfolio. That is a huge stark difference. Is this diverse enough? it may not be, and that could be a huge con for you. You could look at an ETF like schg that has 48% in information technology. It's got sectors like finances, healthcare, consumer staples. These are some other great ETFs that you can have different sectors and diversification. QQQ is the same. It only has 60% information technology, and it's got different sectors that it makes up the portfolio. But VGT has 60% of the portfolio in 10 different stocks. Now, with Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple making up almost 30 to 40%, you may be thinking, could it be too much in those top three? It could be. And that could be something that you may look at. Now, you could also see that the thing is, if Nvidia goes up 100%, well, that's a great news because you now hold it in VGT. But if it also tanks, well, your ETF could tank as well. That could be one of the cons. Another one of the cons could be the expense ratio. Now, the expense ratio is 0.10%, which means it costs about $10 for every $10,000 invested. Now, it is a low expense ratio compared to QQQ, which is 0.20%. But if you compare it to other technology ETFs like FTEC, which is the Fidelity Technology ETF, that ETF's got a expense ratio 0.08%, a little bit cheaper. Or if you just wanted a plain growth ETF like schg, which the expense ratio is 0.04%. That is great news. Or even VUG, which is 0.04%. That's another cheap growth ETF. So VGT is not the cheapest on the market. It is cheaper than QQQ, but you can also find some cheaper technology ETFs. That could be a con for you. You may want the cheapest technology ETF on the market, and VGT is not the cheapest, but it is cheaper than some others. So that is another con. So there you have it. You have 4 reasons why VGT could be the best growth technology ETF on the market that could make you rich. Or could there be others? There could be. Let me know in the comments. Do you like VGT? Would you add this to your portfolio? Would you prefer something more diverse like SEHG or QQQ? Or would you rather have a lot more money in individual stocks like Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple? Or just put all that money into VGT? Let me know in the comments. And if you are looking for maybe just one ETF to rule them all and to make just a one ETF portfolio, I'm going to leave a video up here so you guys can take a look and see for your thinking. Should you just do one ETF, or should you create like maybe a 3-fund portfolio? All right, that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed this content and you enjoyed some VGT. All right, until next time, I'll see you.